everybody, and welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radiorama, where, as the name implies, I show you how to work on radios and other things that tend to run on glowing vacuum tubes. From the 1930s through about the 1960s, and today we have a Webcor clock radio. I already forgot the model number. Model number B-300-I in a burgundy plastic case. Do not know its working condition. The clock is currently running. So, sometimes it's hard to tell how you turn these guys on with the clock, but we've got filament happening, so that's a good sign. It means that there's no breakages in the filament string. I don't hear anything so far. Some of these take longer to warm up than others. Oh, there we go.
Companies in line for the Digital Services Act.
Let's go. We got like 90 seconds left.
Seems like it works really well. So either it's all original and it's just been kept in good dry conditions, which I know it has because we picked it up from a house 45 minutes away from here, and it was inside. Or it's been worked on. Someone might have replaced just the electrolytics, or someone overhauled it entirely, which I doubt is true. So, first thing first, we're going to need to take the back off and the case. The back off and the chassis out. It looks like there's a ferrite magnet there. This whole thing will come out in one piece. There's probably a few screws in the bottom. Yeah, there's like 2 screws. So we need to take those off and then we can slide this out. Okay, so now I've pulled the chassis and the clock, which is subsequently mounted to the chassis, out, so that makes things a little bit easier when I'm reassembling. And I went ahead and detached the back, because it's kind of made out of a soft cardboard. I don't want to damage it. So let's look underneath. And it has indeed been worked on. That electrolytic, that is a Sprague Adams multi-section capacitor, and that's a replacement. Even though whoever replaced it did a... Never mind. It is a replacement. That would not come from the factory like that. So there's really only 2 values in here. There's 2 50 microfarad caps. And then we just have a handful of other random paper capacitors. The most important one is this one. This is the other end of the filament string. So this is going to chassis. If it didn't have a capacitor between the other side of the line, then this would be a true hot chassis, and you could run the risk of shocking the living crap out of yourself. And we're going to replace that with an even smaller value and a different type, but I'll get into that in just a minute. Type A Astron capacitors. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other paper capacitors. And no, none of them are good anymore. It's amazing these radios work sometimes, because I'll test the capacitors just at just for shits and giggles, and like they're always way, way, way off. But these aren't the most sophisticated machines on the planet anyway. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is replacing these 2 capacitors with 2 obviously modern equivalents, and test, and then go on and clean out the rest of these capacitors. Okay, so we got the 2 electrolytics replaced, and I replaced one of the paper caps because I needed to get some of the wiring out of the way. So let's see if it's still going to work for us here. There we go. Got filament. I know it probably won't pick up much because I disconnected my antenna. I just want to make sure it still works in any fashion at all, which it should. Seems like it's a pretty long warming up radio for some reason. Could just be we have some tubes that are a little tired. Yep, we're still good here. So I'm going to replace the rest of the capacitors, and then I'll clean the chassis out, clean the controls, clean the tube sockets, all that good stuff. Okay, well, I got through the rest of the capacitors. Well, there weren't that many in here. It's pretty easy to work on chassis. I am sort of going full speed on these guys. We have an event coming up in a little over a month now, and we need to have like 60 pieces restored. It's a tremendous amount of pieces to get done. So I'm knocking out the AA5s left and right, usually getting one done per evening. I'm not filming all of these either. But I am filming this one because I think it's a little more interesting. Alright, so the radio still works just fine. It's actually pretty sensitive. So I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out and get my paintbrush, dry paintbrush, and leaf blower to blow all the dust and crap off of here. This guy had like 15 cats at one point, so there's probably like 2 cats worth of hair in there. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add an audio input. This one actually already has one. It's got 2 phono connections, and I'm not sure why that is. Let me look on the, what does this say? Recorder out. Phono input. Okay, so I guess if you wanted to record the radio, you could do that. Webcor made a lot of record players and tape players. A lot of them wound up in classrooms. So it's unusual seeing a consumer 5-tube radio, but now that I see these inputs, makes total sense. That was right up their alley. It's already got a switch to decouple the radio signal, so I don't need to add that. But this is a floating hot chassis set, and so the audio is going to run through this isolation transformer. I'm probably going to mount it right here, and what I want to do is probably drill a little hole right here, put a rubber grommet in it so that I can run my 3.5 millimeter stereo cable, and we're going to tie the right and left channels together through some resistors, so that's going to make it true mono. It's a little bit easier because, again, we don't have to deal with the switch. It's already added for us, so that's a little nice. So let me do that, get that all wired up, and then it'll be time to move over to the plastic case, because that's what's so snazzy about it, that nice ox blood color. Okay, so here's the setup. We have the rubber grommet with the cable wire coming through with a knot so you can't yank it out of there, and that goes to the isolation transformer. Right and left channels tied together through a set of 33 ohm resistors. Secondary side, which is the side with the 2 narrow pins, that's where the incoming audio comes in. The primary then goes to the audio source input, which is this jack. And I'm going to clean, before I do anything else, I'm going to clean this switch just to make sure it's all hunky-dory. There we go. But it does work. That switch is a little bit dirty. I'll clean it a little bit more. But it's working, so now it's time to button this up and move on to the plastic case. Okay, it's time to start working on the case. First thing I'm going to do is give it a little bit of a bath. Looks like I'm about to run out of cleaner. Stuff smells gross anyway. So it's supposed to smell like grapefruit. It smells like gross, like scented shampoo. Anyway, I just want to kind of get all the grime and shit off of there. Don't want to get it too wet because I don't want to damage the label underneath. Maybe let it sit out here in the sun for a little bit. Oh boy, here comes the ice cream truck. We have the weirdest little ice cream truck around here. It's tiny. Okay, well, I'm going to start using my favorite plastic polish, Novus number 2, and my drill mounted buffing pad. This sure saves my hands. I'm going to go over this whole thing with plastic polish. And like, basically, to demonstrate, put a little dab on it. You don't need much. Like that. Actually, it's a little bit too much. But whatever. And just, I'm trying to film this one-handed without making everything slip. You can just do like this. Whoops, wrong direction. Just go over the whole thing like that repeatedly. You'd be amazed what a big difference that's going to make. Okay, well you can see what a huge difference that makes. It's all nice and shiny and glistening. So now that the case is done, the electronics is done, it's time to button it all back up and put it back together again. Alright, so she is all done now. And I've got the audio running through the audio input thing. I always thought it was weird, these guys that have the speakers sticking out on the side like that. But you know, it's a clock radio, whatever. A lot of these guys sat in kitchens too. So that concludes this little mini episode of Radiorama. Again, going through a lot of sets rather rapidly. And so I apologize for kind of the crazy nature of some of these. But that's it for this episode. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below. And until next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.